They rob you blind and you thank them for it. That's a tragedy. That's a scam. That's why I'm saying this right now. Americans, you don't need a tariff. You need a revolution. For decades, your government and oligarchs won't ship your job to China, not for diplomacy, not for peace, but to exploit cheap labors. And in the process, they hollowed out your middle class, crushed your working class, and told you to be proud while they sold your future for profit. And yes, China made money, but we used it to build roads, lift millions out of poverty, fund healthcare, raise living standard. We reinvested in our people. My family also benefited from it. What did your oligarchs do? They bought yachts, private jets, and mansions with golf course driveways. They manipulate the market, dodge tax, and poured billions into endless wars. And you get stagnated wages, crippling healthcare costs, cheap dopamine, debt, and flag wave property made in China while they pick your pocket. For 40 years, both China and the United States benefit from the trade, the manufacturing, but only one of us use that wealth to build. This isn't China's fault. This is yours. You let this happen. You let the oligarchs fit your lies. Well, they made you fat, poor, and addicted. Now they blame China for mess they made. I don't think so. I don't think you need another tariff. You need to wake up. You need to take your country back. I think you need a revolution.
What's poppin', my friends, my family? Welcome to a rare Nick in the morning. I've been enjoying doing these Monday morning breakdowns with our friend SL Kanthan. I will introduce him very soon. I've been having a lot of fun. I know Kanthan, he had a lot of great tweets, probing at the insane mind of MAGA, and I've been laughing at and poking holes in the logic that many people who are like extremely anti-China has. The ruling class, one of the greatest tricks that they pulled, and I can't wait to ask our guests about this. One of the greatest tricks that they pulled was the ruling class managed to convince Americans to blame China for their incompetence. The ruling, as this guy said, this was one story of the video. I did have, I'm gonna shoot my first hotspot of the week tomorrow. I didn't have a hotspot ready, so I want to show this banger TikTok that our friend Zoya's Life shared with me. I had a viral tweet. I'm gonna show you guys this. I had this tweet, and I love when tweets like these go viral. Like over 1 million views. Well, I simply was explaining how China is not our enemy. We had Counterpoint China on our show. He's explained how China is the first superpower in human history that obtained their power and their status, their clout, and their wealth without dropping bombs, without colonizing, without engaging in war and exploitation. Not saying the government is perfect, but China is not our enemy. Our enemy is the criminal ruling class. And I'm glad this tweet resonated with a lot of people, but you also see that there's over 1,000 comments. I'll tell you guys, if people like your tweets, they will usually leave a like, retweet it. You know what I mean? Every once in a while, you get words of encouragement. But if you got that many comments like I do, if you got 1,000 people commentating on your tweet, there are a lot of people who are fucking furious. And let me tell you guys, the amount of white dudes that will just, like people like this guy, like the amount of white dudes that were just fucking furious that I had the audacity to praise any non-Western country. This guy said, the Chinese system of government is communism. It's communism. What's wrong with people? This is anti-Western, anti-American, and anti-Christ. You guys see what decades of American propaganda have done? They managed to convince many white people, and there are many poor white people. I don't know if Mark is poor, but there are many poor white people in this country. Imagine you're being poor and white, and you're not benefiting from the trillions that the empire stole, but you feel this blind loyalty to defend the foreign policy and the decisions of the ruling class, and you believe that's patriotism, just supporting Donald Trump, supporting the Mike Pompeo vision of U.S. foreign policy, supporting Marco. You guys think supporting the criminals in our ruling class is patriotism instead of cheering on decreasing poverty, having coherent policies? That is not what we have. And I'm gonna bring my guest in, Kanthan. I'm very interested on hearing his takes on the trade war. Kanthan does a lot of great work. Geopolitical analyst, historian, author as well. Thank you for joining us once again on RB and Kanthan. I can't wait to hear your point of view because I've been reading a lot of your tweets and I love your perspective on this. One thing that people say why they hate China, I always ask people, why do you hate China? I see like corporate media, they say stuff like, do you know that China is stealing our intellectual property? How are they stealing your intellectual property when their shit is way better? Like the fuck? But anyway, Kanthan, I want to get you in here. I want to get your impressions. What are your thoughts on the MAGA economic agenda of trying to bring China to their knees, to bring countries to negotiate with it, to bring manufacturing back? What's your thought, Kanthan? We dive more into more detail, but I want to get your opening thoughts.
Back when Biden was the president, he was a zombie,
Yeah.
And then we have Trump. He is like the opposite of a zombie. He has like way too much energy, way too many thoughts, and they're not very smart thoughts, but he has a lot of thoughts, a lot of energy, and he's just like causing chaos all over the world. It's like one day I'm gonna tariff you, and then just 5 days later, maybe not, and then 2 days later, I'm gonna have the exemptions for my tariffs. And then, but 2 days later, well, they're not really proper, the exemptions. Okay, we're going to come back to those.
Isn't it interesting how the capitalist class, they love central planning so much now? They love picking winners and losers. I'll let you finish, Kanthan, but they claim that socialism is evil because we pick winners and losers, aka we support the working class. Meanwhile, you have Trump. Their open economic vision is picking which industries will succeed and what industries will fail. What work is valuable to them? Which one will they support with subsidies? But please, Kanthan, please finish your thought.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's a fantastic point because all these libertarians and the conservatives, they always say the government is, the enemy. You're supposed to have a laissez-faire, free market, free enterprise, deregulation, no government, let the hidden hand of the market, the invisible hand of the market should determine who trades with who, what they pay for, and all of that. And now here's a guy who is micromanaging and just destroying the economy, because whenever he says something, trillions of dollars in the market are lost or gained. It's just like madness. It's like psychedelic market all over the world, But finally, the market, first he said, well, I don't care what happens to the stock market because only a very few percentage of the Americans, they own stocks. Hold on. So this was the guy. For 4 years in his first term, he would tweet constantly whenever the stock market went up, And now that the stock market is going down, he's like, it doesn't matter. What is stock market? It's only for the top 5% of Americans.
The most delusional people I've seen are the people who say that Donald Trump is implementing tariffs to fight for the working class, to bring working class money home. Meanwhile, you have Donald Trump literally with his rich friends bragging about how he tanked the market on purpose. Not his friends, a lot of his close friends. They engage. All the politicians do this, by the way. It's not like Trump unique on this. They engage in insider trading. Trump tanked the market, and then he got his rich friends to buy the industries that he planned to save. So he robbed from the retirement funds of many Americans in order to transfer that wealth to the rich. It's like one of the most classic class warfare, rob from the working class, give to the rich schemes we've seen. And that's why it's weird that people still pretend that he's doing these policies to work for the working class. But please continue, Captain.
Yeah. So, so he is, he has some valid concerns about trade deficit, manufacturing, tariffs. But this is the problem, okay? So he is 90% wrong and but 10% right. So this is the problem.
Please explain.
Yeah, so this is the problem with the person who's like half baked. It's like you read about rocket science in Wikipedia for 30 minutes, and then you think that you are a rocket scientist, and that's what is happening. So there is a lot of science and the art to tariffs, trade, deficits, manufacturing, and so you need to have the subtlety, you need to have the nuances, and you should know what to tariff, when to tariff, how much to tariff, who to tariff. So these, but these are all the nuances. So you can't just go around saying, "Oh, okay." So here's one. Okay. So the first problem with the tariffs is that it becomes a crony capitalism.
Yep, here it is. Go ahead, explain.
So they did a study of tariffs during Trump's first administration, and they found out that the companies who gave a lot of money to the Republican Party, they got the exemptions from the tariff. And the people who did not give any money to Trump or who gave money to the Democratic Party, they got punished. So this is not a free market. This is just like mafia.
This is the central planning that they criticize, and they accuse. I'm a socialist. They accuse us of advocating for this. Me, I don't want to project your ideology, but they accuse me of advocating for. Oh, you want winners to lose? That's the same point I made earlier. But here's Trump. To your point, and I'm glad that you highlighted and shared it. This is why you should follow Kanthan on Twitter if you haven't. I'll read it for people who haven't read the tweet. A study was done on 7,000 tariff exemptions during Trump's first term. The finding was predictable, but it's still shocking how out in the open they do it. You know what I mean? Companies that gave a lot in political donations to the Republican Party were more likely to get tariff relief. How surprising is that? Crony capitalism and tariff-induced corruption. Meanwhile, there are still a lot of dummies in MAGA that believe that Donald Trump is doing this for the poor and the working class. And like he has a plan as if this is anything else other than him enriching his class loyal capitalist oligarchs, right? But please continue, Kanthan. I love that you came on to explain this kind of stuff.
Yeah. So what is a tariff? The tariff is like a sales tax on foreign goods, right? And sometimes it's good when you want to protect your domestic corporations or sectors, and you can do that if you need some temporary help, like say you are a poor country, but let's say you are Nigeria, and you want to start your own textile sector, right? So there are all these 50 Nigerian textile people. They come to the government and say, hey, listen, so we have this great idea. We are going to invest $1 billion in building factories, and we're going to hire a lot of people. But we are in the beginning stage, so we will not be able to compete with, say, Chinese textiles and the apparel. And then the Nigerian government can say, okay, I will put very high tariffs on the Chinese goods for the first 5 years, and you guys can slowly build up, capture the market, learn the ropes of the textile industry. And then after 5 years, we're going to slowly remove the tariffs. And then, so then that will be a good kind of a tariff, right? Like when you are beginning to do something and you don't know what is happening and you're not able to compete with really sophisticated vendors around the world, that would make sense, okay? But in the US, like Donald Trump puts 200% tariffs on the toys from China. Okay, nobody in the US is going to make toys. Okay, 0%, 0% chance that 5 years from now, tens of thousands of Americans are going to be sitting in a toy factory stuffing Barbie dolls and painting the faces of little toys. Okay, so nobody has a plan. So nobody has come up and said, Mr. Trump, I really want to start a toy factory and pay like, $10 an hour for Americans to do toys. That will cost then like $200 for a Barbie doll. It's not happening. Okay, so that is called the stupid kind of tariff. When you are taxing goods, yeah, there we go. So that is the future of America under Trump.
Nothing makes me want to hit the gym more than when Chinese people fat shame us. We deserve it. I'm like, damn, man, that hurts. But we need to hit the gym. We need to hit the gym, guys.
So it's so funny in Xiaohongshu, the Chinese app.
I love that.
So yeah, so one American went on that app, and he asked the Chinese people, "Hey, so like you guys are always so polite and so nice. So why don't you make fun of us? So make a joke about Americans." So one Chinese asked, "Why do you guys we eat like you have free medical care, free health care? Why do you eat so much as if you have free health care?"
Yeah, I posted that. They roast us so perfectly, but completely team. That's hilarious. I want to see if I can find that. But you can continue on the point because this is the failed idea. I'm bringing this tweet up here. You can speak on this. The idea that MAGA has. This is what is incoherent because they say, and you listen to like Sean Fang and some union people. They will explain how tariffs is good to bring jobs back. But then Trump and his team will also say we're using tariffs as a way to negotiate with other countries. So, if you're going to use tariffs to bring jobs back, it needs to be a long-term plan. And not saying you can negotiate with countries. Like his plan contradicts each other. But I want you to speak more on this because you explain in this tweet here for all the MAGA people who think that due to Trump and tariff or natural evolution of economics, robot will bring manufacturing back to the U.S. Here's the bad news. So please explain, Kanthan.
Yeah. So, okay. So the MAGA people have so many different excuses or narratives about the tariffs, and they're all wrong. So one narrative is that, yeah, we will not be stuffing the toys, and we will not be assembling the iPhones, but we will have robots in America doing that job, which the Chinese people are doing right now. Okay. So there are a lot of foolish things about that narrative. First of all, the Chinese are also way ahead of the US in the use of the industrial robots. So they buy and they make their own robots. Okay. In China, there are factories where robots are making robots. Okay.
What?
Like, yeah, they
What?
have
That's so crazy.
they have robots making robots. Okay, so the US has lost the robot race. So as the chart that you have on the screen shows, the Chinese are installing like with 10 times more robots than the US does. Okay, so they
Wow.
have factories where they are spitting out a brand new car like in less than 1 minute. Okay, so I believe it's 40 seconds. So 40 seconds, you have a brand new car. 40
That's so
seconds
crazy.
later, 40 seconds later, you have a brand new car, all assembled, all painted. So they have this like huge supply chain production line, and there are so many robots doing things at the same time with different.
Check your audio. I can't hear you now for some reason. Chat, can you hear him? I don't know if your audio got disconnected. Chat, let me know if you can hear him. I can hear him. Try to reconnect your mic, or just refresh the page and try to come back in. Sometimes that helps. Like if you refresh the page. I can't hear. I guess I'll read the super chat while we wait for him. Do you guys see how behind we are now? I learn new things about China all the time. That's why I love bringing people like Kanthan on, people like Carl Zha, many people like China Counterpoint, Li Jingjing. I learn new stuff about China all the time. Like that's mind blowing to me.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah. Once again, like refreshing helps sometimes. So, welcome back. Please continue your point.
Yeah. So China is way ahead of the US in the robots. Okay. And in the future, if you want to have a factory with the robots doing the assembly of the iPhones, you're going to buy the robots from China. Okay.
Yeah.
You'll be like, hello, China, can you send me a robot?
Here it is. This is what I was looking for. This is what you were just talking about, right?
Yeah.
This is literally crazy. I was in the car business for a while. I was in manufacturing as well. I used to make printers, and then I got laid off. Another example, American manufacturing disappearing. But this factory, I don't know how to say that. Xiaomi's factory produces 40 electric cars every hour. Jesus Christ! Or
40 electric cars forever. My God. Okay.
One car in 76 seconds without a single human worker. Americans have no idea how far behind we are. I still don't, because I still learn new stuff like this. Like, to be honest, I still don't understand how far behind we are. We can't even comprehend what happens when you actually have a coherent central planning model for the last few decades, and you've just been working like a motherfucker. Americans have been bombing. You know what I mean? You know, we spend like $1 trillion in Afghanistan to replace the Taliban with the Taliban. That's the kind of shit we was doing. So as we was doing all that stupid shit, killing people, think we was badass, China innovating like a motherfucker. Which is wild, because they say, and you will hear this on every single corporate media channel, they say China is stealing our intellectual property. What fucking intellectual property that we have that can do this? That's why that talking point is so ridiculous. Sorry, Kanthan, my mind is just blown just watching this. This is crazy.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add?
Yeah. So if you look at what's happening to the U.S. for the last 45 years, since Reagan came to the office in 1980, so for 45 years, the U.S., the elites and the oligarchs have been deliberately deindustrializing America. Right? The same thing happened to the UK. Yeah. So we only have like 7-8% of the American workforce in manufacturing. And if you take out the fluff manufacturing, like, under George Bush, he reclassified people who are flipping burgers, the McDonald's workers, as manufacturing.
Wow.
Okay, so this is even like a fake number. So like if you really think about like the smart, hardcore manufacturing people, like who know the electronics, the electrical stuff, the mechanical stuff, how to build a car. The engine, right? Like that kind of the hardcore manufacturing people, that's only like about 4% of the American workforce.
Wow.
So the skills are lost, the factories are lost, the knowledge is lost. You cannot just bring back manufacturing just like that in 4 years. It would take like maybe another 15, 20 years of consistent efforts. And you need to change the mentality, right? Like if you go to a young person in the US and you say, do you want to work in manufacturing? I think in big cities, like 99% of the young people would say no.
Yeah.
Right? Like you go to New York City, San Francisco, and you pick up a random 21-year-old boy and a girl, and you say, would you like to work in manufacturing? They'd be like,
They all
what?
want
What
to
are
be.
you
They
talking?
want to be like fucking influencers and shit now. They all want to be like I Shall Speed. That's what they want to do now.
Exactly. They want to be like YouTube influencers, salespeople, marketing, all the fluff jobs, like you just bullshit your way through. Nobody wants to work in manufacturing, looking at, like, is this metal? Should I use the nickel for this? Or I don't even know the metals, okay? But you get the point. It's like, it's like a whole another generation with like very different kind of background, very different kind of education, very different kind of a job experience. You're not going to get manufacturing back. And it's not, when people think of manufacturing, they just think of the assembly workers, right? But that's the very, very last part of manufacturing. Like the manufacturing starts in the labs, in the research and development, where they have to figure out what is the right metal, how to make the metal lighter, more flexible, how to make this kind of plastic, blah 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 blah. Like there's like really rocket science. Like you wear like a shirt and you think it's it's just some really poor people making your shirt, but that's the very last step. And if you start from like where the like how nylon is made, how polyester is made, how cotton, they take cotton and turn it into threads. That's like a multi-million-dollar factory. Like there are like these super duper machines that take the cotton and turn that into threads. and then the dyes, right? Like we take it for granted. Oh, black, green, blue, but there are like huge factories that have to make dyes. It's like so you need to spend like billions of dollars, and you need to fine tune it. So there's a lot of science involved in marketing. I mean, in manufacturing. So that's but so let's go back to tariffs. Okay, so
Yeah.
there
I
was
want to
this.
bring up this tweet. I'll bring up this tweet, and you can speak more on it because this you were speaking about how MAGA and Trump,
Oh
why
yeah,
they're
okay, so
miscalculating.
it's a
Just
good one.
to give you a direction, we can read this tweet off because we have so much that we can discuss on this. So many receipts we can go over. Let's start here because this is a great point you bring up. I'll just read the first part and then I'll let you explain the rest. You say Trump talks a lot about the late 19th century and tariffs, but he misses 2 points, and this is a very important point because you hear Trump. I hear MAGA people as well because guys, I have been very curious. I've been listening to the MAGA argument. And I was like, all right, I want to see what their argument is. And it doesn't make fucking sense to me. Please explain why you believe they're misguided by comparing their policies to what they're trying to meet, the age of manufacturing in America. Please explain, Kanthan.
Okay. So Trump is right. If you go back to the late 19th century, the last 35 years of the 19th century, manufacturing was a big business. It was really booming. You had a steel industry, the oil industry, railway industry, like people like Rockefeller and J.P. Morgan, Andrew Carnegie. Like they were all multi-billionaires who made their billions of dollars through manufacturing and the infrastructure, right? But there were a couple of things that made it possible to be like that. One, when the Civil War came to an end in 1865. Oh, by the way, but today was the day that Lincoln was actually assassinated at the end of the Civil War. So when the Civil War ended, 60% of the Americans were farmers. Okay, so they had to work their asses off in the farms every day, wife and the husband and the children. It was very, very tough life. So for those people, when the factories opened up, it was like a huge upgrade. They were like, wow, this is so awesome. I don't have to be like in the sun, in the dirt, picking up crops and making wheat and whatnot is really backbreaking hard work. And I could just be in the factory. I could be like inside a factory, no sun and no sweat. And all I have to do is to sit on a chair and do some, same stuff every day, talk to my friends. Wow, I love manufacturing. I love factories. This is so great, right? But now if you go to a Starbucks person and say, do you want to do, sit in at one desk all day long and put together nuts and bolts, they won't do that. See, once you go to the service job, you don't want to go back to manufacturing. But if you are from the agriculture, it's like an upgrade to go to manufacturing. So we can see the same thing happening in China, right? When in the 1980s, China opened up and they opened up factories, a lot of the farmers were actually very happy to work in the factories. And they were actually very happy to stuff toys and to put together the computers because it was an upgrade. But the same for the factory workers now have children who don't want to work in factories. Okay, so like if you go to China, like if you go to Shanghai, Beijing, and you ask a 19-year-old, would you like, so let's say he dropped out of school, he's not a very smart kid, right? He doesn't have many job opportunities. And you say, hey, buddy, would you like to drive a scooter and deliver the mail every day? Well, or would you like to work in a factory? What do you think he's going to say? He's going to say, I mean, I like driving scooters. It's more fun. And I can be, driving around Beijing all day long. I don't want to be stuck in a factory. So, so this is why in the 19th century, there was a huge boom in manufacturing because, I mean, all these farmers in America, they were very happy to go to factories. And then number two, these rich people like Rockefeller, Andrew Carnegie, J.P. Morgan, and all these the oligarchs, they didn't have like an easy way to make money with the derivatives, real estate boom, stock manipulation. Those were not really possible at a large scale. So their only way to make money was actually, I mean, in the industrial economy. So Rockefeller made his money by drilling oil, by making the chemicals out of oil, the petrochemicals. And then they worked with the military industrial complex to capture markets for the oil and so on. But now the oligarchs these days, they don't want manufacturing. It's very, very low margin. Like you try, so that's why in starting in the 1990s, the U.S. Companies, they decided to go for maximum profit. So they said, yeah, let the Chinese, the Vietnamese, the Indians, they do the manufacturing, and we just do the design. So I sit in Cupertino, and I say, hey, I want a really thin touch screen. Right? But I don't know a lot about actually how to make a touch screen. So I leave that up to South Korea, to China, to Japan to figure that out. So I just focus on the high margin stuff. Right? So that's why Tesla, Apple, all these companies are worth like trillions of dollars because they very smartly, or they thought they were so smart in focusing on just the design, so that works a bit. But eventually, if you don't have the manufacturing skill, you cannot make anything, right?
Yeah, it's so behind.
I mean, yeah, because I can say, like, for example, if I want to make some, food, and I can write a beautiful recipe about how to make the most delicious muffin, right? But you need somebody who really spends a lot of time in the kitchen playing with different kind of flours, different fermentation process, different temperature, how much, the eggs to add, how much, what kind of,
I can make a mean steak, but I'm a horrible baker. I messed up so many breads before. But go ahead.
Yeah, right. So it's so easy to just do stuff in your mind or on in a PowerPoint, as how to make a world famous wine. But you have to spend like 20 years making wine to know like exactly how to make the best kind of wine. So same thing with manufacturing. So but now the Chinese have the sixth generation fighter jet, and they're doing all kinds of amazing things with drones and ships and space station, blah blah blah. They're like so far ahead. Okay, so this the Australian think tank did a study of 64 leading edge technologies in the world, and the Chinese scientists and the researchers are leading in 57 out of 64.
Wow.
Okay. So that kind of stuff, you don't just say, okay, all right, I'm going to become so great in research. No, it takes like years and years.
That is
You know,
what
like you,
China completely destroys us in. They completely outclass us and just the ability to manufacture because they didn't abandon it. They didn't abandon
yeah,
it to wage war. And the anger, like Americans, so many Americans won't ever forgive China for surpassing them and humiliating them. I want you to speak on this. I know I'm a few days late on this, but you guys know I had to comment on this because you can
my,
just tell the utter disdain that JD Vance and he represents his constituency here. There's so many of these Americans. I've seen them on my timeline over the last 24 hours praising China, where they just had this rabid hatred of China, and they can't explain why. Because they had the audacity to catch up and outclass the United States and do it without dropping bombs. So let's play the clip, and I want you to speak more on. I want you to speak on this. Can you explain how this is a part of Americans' arrogance? I want you to speak on that point. Let me play this short clip.
We borrow money from Chinese peasants to buy the things those Chinese peasants manufacture. We borrow money.
Like that's a hard P on that peasant, man. Like that's the same hard P you hear like a hard N when they say the N word against us. You know what I mean? There's a lot of hatred there. Actually, do you mind if I play this clip here before I get your thoughts?
yeah, sure.
Because you guys know, as I said, I'm a big fan of Red Note. I love talking to our Chinese brothers and sisters on the app. And ever since the JD Vance peasant comment, and it's kind of weird to me because the United States officials talk shit about Chinese people all the time, but it's something about this moment, especially with the rising tension with the election of Trump. It's something about this clip. Because trust me, I heard Lindsey Graham and Tom Cotton say shit that's just as bad on Fox News. You know what I mean? But there was something about this moment. I don't blame them that pissed China the fuck off, and it has been a massive rallying cry to them. And this is just one of many videos of Chinese people explaining how, man, you calling us peasants? Have you seen how we live, motherfucker, compared to how you live? Like, we don't even want to diss you guys that much. We're just going to show you guys some shit.
Right now I'm in China and I'm going to Shenzhen by train. So I've forgotten my phone and I want to get something from the store. So I'm at 7-Eleven. So I'm going to pick up a sparkling water. And what's very interesting is they actually have, so I'm going to scan it. They actually have WeChat Palm Pay. So that's my WeChat ID. That's my WeChat ID, and I just paid without having my cards or my wallet on me or my phone, which is pretty crazy, mind-blowing. You don't have to take anything with you when you like go and travel. So that's the beauty of China. It just shows how ahead China is in terms of technology.
But JD Vance and Fox News wants you to think they're peasants. Please, Kanthan, I would love to hear your thoughts on this JD Vance statement and the reaction.
What kind of like racism, imperialism, just pure arrogance and pure stupidity, So there are some farmers in China for sure, wonderful, but JD Vance wouldn't say anything bad about the farmers in America because he needs their vote, So he would be like, oh, these amazing soybean corn farmers in America, they are the backbone of America. So if the farmers are backbone of America, why shouldn't they be backbone of China? But the people who are doing the innovation, the factories, they're not peasants in China, okay? These people have college degrees in engineering. Like take BYD, it's now the number one, the electric car company in the world in terms of sales. And BYD has 100,000 engineers, okay, not peasants, but 100,000 engineers with bachelor's degree, master's degree, PhD in engineering. So these people are not peasants, you stupid fuck. These are very, very smart people who go to Tsinghua University, Peking University,
And
which
the
are
people
like,
who are
say,
not elite, even the people who are not elite, I heard that around 90% of millennials in China own their own homes. Like
yeah,
even the people who are not among the elites, they live a higher quality of life because they have access to healthcare, for example.
yeah,
Like the life expectancy in the United States is a joke. It's been falling. Like what other modernized country and industrialized country have a decreasing life expectancy rate? But that life expectancy rate is actually worse when you go down the income level because it's actually inflated based on because of wealthy people. So we have a group of workers in America who can't afford health care, who die sick prematurely. But the arrogance and smugness to call another group of working class peasants, and the way that the Chinese handle this has been amazing. They use this as a rallying cry. I don't have time to show you guys all the stuff I've seen. Check out Red Note if you're interested, because it's been glorious. They've been going after JD Vance like aggressively after this, because they're like, yeah, we're peasants, we're proud, but we're peasants who live in well. We're peasants who are not going in medical debt. We're peasants who actually have homes. You know what I mean? But Kanthan, please say your thoughts. Sorry, it's so much
yeah,
to say because it's the arrogance that I deal with. We deal
yeah.
with.
So like they don't even know what it takes to be successful in manufacturing. Okay, that's the biggest problem. So if I'm just like a fat guy, sitting on my couch watching basketball, the NBA. Well, I can be like Michael Jordan. I can be like James LeBron. It's so easy. What do? They just jump around, okay? All they do is jump. I can jump. Anybody can jump, okay? I mean, all you need is really some good shoes. You're like, what the fuck are you talking about? You're like a total idiot, So, that's the problem. Like they don't know what it takes to be successful in manufacturing. You need a huge supply chain. You need really world-class, the infrastructure, like say seaports, airports, railways, highways, bullet trains, for transporting all the raw materials and stuff. And you need production in scale, right? So, for example, China makes 13 times as much steel as the US does, right? So the U.S. Steel industry, they cannot even meet the needs of the U.S. Okay, so they have so the steel industry, steel industry in the U.S. they make only 70% of the steel that is needed in the U.S. So they have to import 30% of the steel. So that's really sad, because there was a time when the US was number one in the world in steel. It had the world's best steel cities like Gary, Indiana. And, like if you went down the rivers of Mississippi and Missouri, like there were these like wonderful towns with the booming middle class, a lot of steel iron industry, the auto industry. All of that was destroyed, and now you cannot just go back to that with tariffs. Like if the U.S. wants to go back to manufacturing, the first thing you need is the cooperation of the Democrats and the Republicans, and you need the cooperation of Wall Street financial firms like BlackRock, because they control the board of directors of all the corporations. And as all these parasitic capitalists must sit around the table, and they should say, yes, we really want to have manufacturing, and it means we're going to have lower profit. We're going, rather than spending $1 trillion on stock buybacks, we are going to spend $1 trillion on building America. rebuilding the cities, rebuilding the railways, roadways, highways. We will build vocational schools. I mean, do you think it's going to happen? It'll take, like they have to sacrifice trillions of dollars, and they have to do that consistently for like maybe 10 years. And they have to convince the girls of OnlyFans that manufacturing is actually better than OnlyFans.
And how tragic is that? Because
How
and this is what-
tragic.
and this is what we were mentioning earlier about the type of work that Americans are looking for. And I think this is a symptom of a sick society. And me personally, I'm not attacking the creators; they are the victims of the society. But we have, and I don't think like this is not even talked about enough, because I don't support obviously like any authoritarian police state solution to this problem. But do people understand that this is becoming a problem? You know what I mean? And I'm actually very sex positive in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? But as socialists, as Marxists, and this actually touches a few nerves whenever people mention this. And as a guy, I actually got to be very careful talking about this. But as a Marxist, we shouldn't be advocating for prostitution as a way for liberation. You know what I mean? And this is things that I evolved on my thinking over the years. This OnlyFans boom, you guys know, I literally was Googling this as you was talking. There's like 4.5 million OnlyFans content creators. So now there are a lot of young working class women that like the second they turn 18, they're planning to start an OnlyFans. And you can't really blame them, because the working class, they are left behind. They're struggling. Then you see these OnlyFans models, they fucking ball in the top 1%. And now that became the new American dream. You have people looking at these women on Instagram like, oh my God, I can't believe she afforded this lifestyle. She's an OnlyFans model. And that became the American dream for many people. And it's not me shaming, because I don't really like that vibe of slut shaming, you know what I mean? But how is this not concerning, guys, that so many people had to rely on OnlyFans? And this is scratching the surface. Billions and billions. Hopefully this is not coming off as problematic. But I think as Marxists and socialists, this is something that we have to address. The fact that so many people feel like they have to do this. And the fact that we can't even have one breadwinning family households. Like for the right-wingers, and I'll pass right to you, Kanthan, at this last point. So many right-wingers talking about having pro-family policies. We don't even have a society where one parent can work. You know what I mean? And that puts even more pressure on one of the people to become OnlyFans content creators. How many OnlyFans models wouldn't be OnlyFans models if they had a significant other that could afford to be the breadwinner? The concept of a breadwinner is non-existent in our society now. But anyway, I'm going off on the weird tangent now. Kanthan, please, if anything you want to add.
Yeah. It's really sad. If you go back to like say 50s, 60s, and even 70s, one guy, a blue collar guy who can be like working at a Ford factory in America, in Detroit, and he can buy a house, get married, have the wife stay at home, raise 2 kids, and he gets a pension from Ford. When he retires, he stays with the Ford for 40 years. It was actually a pretty good life. A lot less stress. And now there's no security in life, right? Like you don't have, but nobody has a secure job for 40 years. Nobody has a secure spouse for 40 years. It's becoming rare. So there are so many problems. But, the U.S. Could have figured out something, So what Trump does not talk about is the service industry, where the U.S. has trade surplus, because the U.S. decided to be a service service economy, which is sort of foolish, but it's but it could be okay. Like if you had really good relations with the rest of the world, maybe you can take turns. You can say, okay, so I'm going to be the service economy. China is going to be the manufacturing economy, but we are going to be friends, so it's no big deal, right? So that would have been smart. But you ship everything, and then you're going to pick a fight with that country. That's kind of stupid, because you
Right.
cannot now survive without China. You cannot survive without the Chinese goods. It's going to wreck the small businesses in America. It's going to spike the cost of everything from Walmart, Target. But do you still have Walgreens?
Yeah, we still have that.
Okay, so Walgreens. So I thought they got bought out or something. So okay, so
Maybe they do.
well,
Who knows? They're probably shadow owned by something. That's usually how it goes. It usually be like all these big brands owned by one mega company. Like
Yeah,
one of the
yeah.
most absurd things that happened recently when they was having like the chicken sandwich wars, where Popeyes had a chicken sandwich, then Wendy's had their chicken sandwich. They were like, "Oh my god, they're competing. They're having the chickens." No, they was owned by one fucking company. It was one company competing with each other in this fake fucking feud. That's how it usually works. But please go
Yeah.
ahead. Please continue, Kanthan.
Yeah. So so he never talks about the trade surplus, right? And then, okay, so here is one thing that Trump does not talk about at all, which is the U.S. corporations making money in other countries through subsidiaries. Okay. So, for example, if you go to China, you will see the U.S. brands everywhere. Okay. There are 7,000, 8,000 Starbucks in China, and the same number of McDonald's. And then there are huge, thousands of KFC, Subway, Burger King, Pizza Hut, right? So there are about 30 to 35,000 fast food chain restaurants from the US in China, right? And they make a lot of money, right? So just imagine 30,000 Starbucks, McDonald's, KFC, Pizza Hut, etc. They must be making billions of dollars in China every year. But that number does not go into the trade balance. Okay, so the trade balance is very, very narrow. What you buy from the country, what you sell from the country, right? Through ships, going through ships. But there's a whole bunch of financial transaction happening between China and the U.S. that Trump does not talk about at all. If you go to China, you'll find all the American brands. Apple has so many stores, and Apple sells millions of the iPhones in China. But the Chinese smartphones vendors like Xiaomi, they cannot sell millions of phones in the U.S. Right? So that's not fair, right? MAGA supporters are always talking about fairness. That's their the new thing. The DEI people, fairness. So why are you not talking about fairness? Why don't you allow? Our Tesla last year sold 600,000 cars within China. So 600,000 Tesla cars were bought by Chinese people. So why doesn't Trump allow Chinese electric cars to be sold in America?
What happened to
that
the
would
free
be
market?
fairness.
What happened
Yeah,
to
that
the
would be
free
fair.
market?
Free market. And that would actually really benefit Americans, because the Chinese cars would be say $15,000, $20,000. Okay, so Well, I saw this car in China, so it costs only $5,000. Okay, and it's like pretty cool. Like they have all. I mean, the electric window. It's pretty cool. For $5,000. I mean, well, it's like a box, and it runs, slowly, like maybe at 40 kilometers per hour. But it's fantastic for young people, for old people, for poor people if they just need to go to work and to do grocery. And so here's the best part: the government has a lot of subsidies if you buy, like, say, I mean, the electric car. So with all kinds of subsidies for the EV, that $5,000 car becomes $700. So you can be a very poor person in China, and you can buy a car, CAR, for $700. Okay, can you buy a phone in the US for $700?
That's why American propagandists are so misleading, because I heard liberals say this all the time whenever I would praise Russia, who provide paid maternity leave, they provide free higher education and healthcare, many social benefits to the working class. But Americans will look at Russia, they said Russia is poor because they make less money than us. And that's true. Russians, their wages are lower than Americans, but they get more out of their society. I saw a TikTok that lived rent free in my head for years. I gotta find it. I can't find it. I saw it years ago, and I never forgot it. It was this Ugandan woman. Maybe someone can send it to me. It was a pretty viral TikTok. I never forgot it. It was like 3 years ago. She explained how it's always hilarious to her how when Americans call her poor, and she's Ugandan. Because she said, even though we technically had less money than you guys know I own my home. She's like, I own my car. I actually can afford to raise a family. I eat pretty well. I'm not in debt. So what does it mean to actually have wealth? Because Americans, yes, we have more wealth than a lot of people in the world, but we're in debt. Credit card debt. We got mortgage debt, medical debt. So are we really wealthier? That's one of the things that they do to mislead people and to be and make Americans content with their current lifestyle. They're like, yeah, we make more money than Russians. We make more money than the Chinese, but we actually live in the worst lifestyle, which is a sign of a corrupt society. But Kanthan, I always enjoy our little hour talks on Monday morning. Any last thoughts you have before we can wrap up? We definitely will have you back on again. It's always good to catch up with you. David Jordan.
So there is, as I wrote an article called "The Science and Art of Tariff." It's a long article, and I think we were able to cover about 50% of what I said in the article. So, well, if you can share that article to your listeners, I think that would be helpful. Because, just remember, like, there are no slogans in life. Okay, so no slogan can make you happy. No slogan can make America great. No slogan can get you a beautiful wife or a rich husband. So no slogan is going to, bring you happiness. Things are always very complex, So a thing like how to change the economy, how to bring back manufacturing is very, very complex. You cannot just go around with a panacea, a silver bullet, with a tariff. I will solve all the problems of the world with a tariff. If that were so easy, but everybody would be doing that. Okay, and it's so funny, like he says, a tariff is the most beautiful word in the dictionary. Okay, then why would he complain about the tariffs of other countries?
Exactly.
Because like either tariff is beautiful or it's not beautiful, and if it's beautiful to you, then it's beautiful to China. It's beautiful to the European Union. Then don't complain. right?
That's a good point.
So there are like a lot of things about this discussion. So but take the time to analyze and think through, and you can figure out all the fallacies of this tariff war, which is very, very bad for the U.S., which is very bad for the rest of the world. He's going to cause a global recession. This one man is going to ruin the lives of so many people. If you want to help in manufacturing, you should do it in a positive way, right? Like you should give tax cuts, rebates, subsidies. Well, if you want to become a better person, focus on yourself. Don't be blaming your neighbors. Don't be blaming your grandparents. It's just make yourself better and do it in a positive way.
Yeah, make sure you guys follow SL Kanthan on Twitter. I always enjoy these conversations. I appreciate you for joining me. Thank you guys for joining us for this Monday morning. I'll be back. We have a post-duopoly show this week. You guys always enjoy that program. That will be Wednesday. A lot of great shows coming up. Make sure you guys follow Kanthan. Make sure you guys like, subscribe. Appreciate you guys. Have a good one, y'all. Peace out, y'all.